Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim for The Real Sports Talk. You can hit me up on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST. Pudge Rodriguez, one of the statistically greatest catchers of all time, is set to retire on Monday. That is coming out of the AP and numerous other websites. And Pudge will retire as a Texas Ranger, the team that he spent a majority of his 21 regular season MLB years with. There's a lot to reflect about on Pudge Rodriguez's career, but let me read off to you some of his accomplishments throughout his career and his total statistics. This is coming from ESPN, this part. Rodriguez was part of 3 AL West champion teams in Texas in 96, 98, and 99. He hit .332 with 35 home runs and 113 RBIs and stole 25 bases during his MVP season, and that season was in 1999. Now, there's been 2 other big catchers to retire this offseason, and those 2 have been Jorge Posada and Jason Varitek. And a lot of people have tried to make the case for them as Hall of Famers. I acknowledge that I did not believe either of them belonged in the MLB Hall of Fame statistically based off what they had done in their career and what I had seen. These are Pudge's career numbers: a .296 career batting average, 2,884 hits, 311 home runs, and 1,332 RBIs, not to mention the 10 gold gloves that he did win throughout his career, which is a MLB record. There's a lot about Pudge Rodriguez, and I think that he's kind of been overlooked because for the last 3 or 4 seasons he really has not been that good. He spent the last 2 with the Washington Nationals, and this offseason there were reports that the Royals tried to sign him, and he just was not really interested in going to a bad team to finish off his career. And I mean, the Royals aren't even that bad of a team, but that if you're not going to get a chance to go play with a team that you know has a really, really good shot at winning the World Series, then why do it? Rodriguez, this is what I want to get out with him. A lot of people are now making the case that he is a top 5 all-time catcher. I statistically and from what I've seen would not deny that he is that. Although the best catcher of his era, that is the part that I have to disagree with, because I would include Mike Piazza in his era, and I believe that Mike Piazza by far is a much better overall power hitter than Rodriguez, probably the greatest power hitting catcher to ever live. And if you go through some of Pudge's stats, well, he did have 35 home runs that year, and in 2001, I mean, he was hitting 27, 30 home runs. But for the remainder of his career after that, this was a 10 or 15 home run guy, and I think that people are overlooking that. I also think what people are overlooking massively is the fact that he has been linked with steroids. And I really don't like to even talk about steroids anymore because it kind of ruined baseball for a 4 or 5 year stretch that, I mean, I still watch it, but a lot of people stopped watching it. Every time a guy hit a home run, it was, oh, is he on steroids now? Rodriguez has never necessarily been he wasn't like in the Mitchell report, I don't believe, or anything of that nature, but Jose Canseco did link Rodriguez with using steroids, and I don't understand people that discredit what Jose Canseco says. The guy is weird. Quite frankly, from all the dealings I've had with him, and I've seen people out with him, he seems like a jerk. I mean, that's just my impression I've got of him. But the bottom line is that book he wrote, everyone laughed at it, but everyone that pretty much that was in that book, it came out to be true. Look at who he played with. He played with guys like Rafael Palmeiro, Alex Rodriguez, numerous other guys on that team, Juan Gonzalez, guys that have, I mean, A-Rod admitted to using it when he was with the Rangers. Palmeiro, I mean, you can go lie on Congress all you want and then test positive 2 weeks later. How he never got perjury trials, I will never know. And then Juan Gonzalez, it was so obvious. Everyone knew that Juan Gonzalez was on it. And I don't like to assume guilty by association, but when he was asked about it the one year, he said, or if he was asked, I believe it was he on that list of 2003? The 2003 list was supposed to be an anonymous test. I don't know how they got away with doing this. It was supposed to be an anonymous test that the MLB was doing to see if they needed to put in better testing. And what came out of this list is it was hidden. No one knew the results for years. And then that lady from Sports Illustrated, I forget her name, that basically stalked A-Rod, came out and said, I found this list, or I attained this list somehow, and A-Rod's name is on it. A-Rod tested positive for steroids in 2003. The next day he admits it to Peter Gammons and everything like that. David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez also came out of that on that list, and Pudge Rodriguez was asked, was your name on that list? And I mean, I was reading an article from 2009 about this when he made this quote, and instead of saying, the article pointed this out, you could have just said, hell no, I was not on this list. I don't think that anyone's going to make a huge deal about it. I still probably wouldn't believe it, but there's a lot of baseball fans who just say, okay, he said he wasn't on the list, then he's probably not on the list. Well, he didn't do that. He said, only God knows. And I don't understand that statement. Either deny it or say no comment or something, but do not just come out with a statement like only God knows. I don't know. I was not a fan of that statement, and that to me is kind of always going to be the black eye on why I don't really put Pudge Rodriguez in the candidacy for being one of the greatest catchers of all time. Statistically, is he there? Of course he is. He had some great years, not only with the Rangers, who we will retire with. He won a World Series in his only year in Florida in 2003. He went back to the World Series with the Tigers in 2006. And finished off, basically after he left the Tigers, his career was over. He played with the Yankees, went to the Astros, got traded back to the Rangers, and spent 2 more years with the Washington Nationals. But essentially his career, his good seasons were with Texas, Florida, and Detroit. And he had a tremendous career. I don't think that anyone would deny that. He was one of the most fun players to watch. He had probably the best nickname of an MLB player. One of the best nicknames of all time. Pudge is a great nickname, and most people don't even call him Ivan Rodriguez. They just call him Pudge. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to believe that he did not do steroids, but that quote to me essentially means that, yeah, he probably did do steroids. Although, I mean, if you look at some of the other names that came out this, and there's Brian Gumbel, and I know that there are a lot of people that don't like Brian Gumbel. Brian Gumbel was one of the people that also came out on this and said that he had a source that told him Jeff Bagwell, who, I mean, we've heard he has big arms. I don't think that anyone would be shocked if he did do it. Ivan Rodriguez and Nomar Garciaparra, who was someone I never really had heard that about, but the bottom line is Nomar Garciaparra went from being in A-Rod and Jeter's categories to just completely falling off the map in a matter of about 2 or 3 years, and that just happened to be right around when the steroid stuff was really starting to affect the players. It wasn't just, oh, your name came out for steroids. It was, you're getting suspended, we don't want you coming back to this team because you did the steroids. And I mean, Nomar Garciaparra played with Manny Ramirez. He played with David Ortiz late or early when David Ortiz was with the Red Sox, and he played with a lot of those guys in the AL East that, unfortunately, I mean, the AL East and the AL West were really the 2 big divisions on steroids. You talk about the Orioles, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. All 3 of those had a lot of names of guys that took steroids. And then in the AL West, you had the A's and the Texas Rangers, who were also 2 teams that had quite a few names come out about them. And, I mean, it's a shame that we can't just reflect on what Pudge Rodriguez did in his career, because he had a great career. But the bottom line to me is Pudge Rodriguez is not a Hall of Famer because of this. And people can say all you want, oh, so is Barry Bonds not a Hall of Famer? No, Barry Bonds is not a Hall of Famer. And I understand that he was having a tremendous career. He would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer if he had never used the steroids or not. He would have hit 500 home runs. He still would have been one of those guys that we looked at and said, damn, he was good. He might have been a jerk, but he was still a great player. And he used those steroids to extend his career and to really reach his goal. His goal was not winning a World Series. His goal was to get an individual accomplishment of being the home run king. And who am I to hate on the guy for doing that? But the bottom line is you cheated. And people can't, you can't convince me that just cheating is okay. I don't get that. People say, oh, well, then you need to kind of curve his numbers, but understand they still this. You cheated. You had the Hall of Fame candidacy and everything, and you cheated. And I mean, I don't know when Pudge, if he did, I think he did, but if he did, when he started using them, and I don't know if he was ever a great player before that or not. But the bottom line is, if you used it once, I consider it cheating, and I don't think that you should be in the Hall of Fame. And I can tell you one thing, even if you disagree with that, he's not going to go to the Hall of Fame because of this. and guys like Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds will never go to it because of this. Now, Pudge has kind of been one of the names that has been lower down, but in baseball circles, the people that are voting for the Hall of Fame will look at that, they will remember that. And I mean, I went to the Hall of Fame 2 or 3 years ago, and I remember thinking, wow, this is great. Look at all these players who did it the right way. And I know that there were amphetamines and spitballs and everything, and we had Gaylord Perry on, who was one of the people most associated with throwing spitballs. But the bottom line is they did not have the effect of steroids. You can't really... To me, I don't look at amphetamines and think that they make you better. The impression I always got of those is they put you at your 100%. Obviously, it's illegal and you shouldn't do it, but I don't know how much cheating that really was. Steroids make you a better player. You have to work hard, and I think that people do not understand. You have to work even harder on steroids and off. You don't just inject it and then the next day you have anchor arms. That's not how it works, but the bottom line is you cheated. And you can say, oh, well, how do we know this guy didn't cheat? How do we know this guy didn't cheat? Well, how do you know the guy next door to you didn't beat his wife last night? How do you know that your son isn't cheating on his test at school? You don't know that, but how can you just assume things like that? In my mind, there's a lot of players from that era that have great Hall of Fame candidacies. Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., and then there's some other players like Fred McGriff, who hit almost 500 home runs, and he was never a great player, but he was very good for a long time, and he could certainly be someone that you see put in the Hall of Fame. And it's not going to be like, oh, well, we're just not going to put anyone in this year. There will be other people to go in that Hall of Fame, and I know that people will say, well, how do you know Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't using it? I don't know that Ken Griffey Jr. wasn't using it, but I would tend to think if he was using it in that era with everyone that's come out. There's been no one that's been untouchable. Andy Pettitte, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire. If he was using something, it would have come out by now, and it hasn't. So I think that he is a Hall of Famer. And Pudge Rodriguez, unfortunately, I do not. Give me your thoughts on, is he a Hall of Famer, and the whole steroid talk. It's kind of a talk that I got bored of, but occasionally it is nice to bring this back up and hear what some new people think. Hit me up on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST, and also like The Real Sports Talk on Facebook. I'll see you guys later.